Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough, and here is a mini dose of Dr. Debbie where I'm sharing tips, suggestions, strategies, and sometimes just motivation to have you move past your betrayal once and for all. Hi there. So I was talking about the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. That was one of the three discoveries made in my study, that there's this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal, it's known as post-betrayal syndrome. And what happens is we can't even imagine that something that happened years, if not decades ago, could possibly be impacting us today. But that's the case. When we have symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome, until and unless the betrayal from whenever it was healed, we keep carrying those symptoms. Time won't heal it. A new relationship won't heal it. Healing will heal it. So what I wanted to do, and what I thought I would do today, is go over these symptoms. Now, what's so interesting is when I remember sending out an email recently and someone wrote back, "I have every one of those symptoms." To me, that's like half a sentence. It's like, I have every one of those symptoms, and I think people are used to just receiving that validation or being heard. And to me, that's doing everybody a huge disservice, because I could say, "Oh my gosh, that is awful. I feel so terrible." You are completely heard. Or I can say, "That stinks. And there's a proven, predictable way to move through all of it." The choice is always yours, of course, but I would so much rather you heal than just get confirmation. Anyway, so I get emails like that all the time. And I thought, okay, maybe I just need to go over a lot of the symptoms. And we have the post-betrayal syndrome quiz on the site at thepbtinstitute.com. But I want to go through some of these symptoms. So if you're thinking, "Oh, it's just stress. Oh, it's just aging." No, it's not. It's your betrayal, even if it happened years, if not even decades ago. The beautiful part of this is you will heal from all of it when you move through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. So I also want you to pay attention to these numbers. And you know what I would love you to do in this episode? Here's what I want you to do. As I'm reading these numbers, I want you don't have to remember the symptoms, but I just want you to keep track. So if I say something, if I say a symptom that you have, just keep track. Like, I got that. That's 1. I got that. That's 2. Keep track, because I want you to see how many of these symptoms you may have been walking around with for a long, long time. Okay. So now at this point, we've probably had, 95,000 plus people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz. Men, women, just about every age group, just about every country is represented. So out of, let's just take 95,000 people. Listen to these numbers, and your job is to just keep track how many of these symptoms you have or you've had in the last year or so. Ready? 78% constantly revisit their experience, which means you're going over it over and over and over again. And in the beginning, you absolutely need to. But what this also means is, as something comes up, you think about it. You see something, you think about it. You hear something, you think about it. 81% feel a loss of personal power. This is huge. So if you had the first one, you're keeping track. If you have this one, you're keeping track. But when you think of personal power, you feel like when you've been betrayed, you feel like the rug has been completely taken out from under you, and your whole worldview, your whole paradigm, your everything, it all just completely shatters. The bottom is bottomed out on you, and a new bottom in the beginning, anyway, hasn't been formed yet. And this is terrifying. So in that loss of personal power, this is also why one of the things we focus on in the PBT Institute, it's not just about healing mentally and emotionally. You need to heal physically too, and psychologically and spiritually. Everything is impacted and everything needs to be healed. So one of the things that we may work on is, let's say, healthy eating and exercise. And you may think, well, that's just so like fluffy and frivolous. What does that have to do with betrayal? Well, think about it. Everything has been taken out of, you may feel like everything has been taken out of your control. What you eat, how you move, may be one of the only things you feel you have control over. So it's really important. Okay. Anyway, if you have that, give yourself, count that. Okay. 80% are hypervigilant. This is super common, especially if the betrayer isn't changing and you're sort of in the same position. You were just sort of waiting for the next shoe to drop all the time. You can imagine what that's doing to your immune system and your nervous system. 94% deal with painful triggers. 94%. And if you've experienced those triggers, they could take you right down. They are so painful. And people think all the time, oh, could it possibly be PTSD symptoms? Isn't that only reserved for the war vets who hear a car backfire and they feel like it's a gunshot and they're right back there in that wartime? You can experience that with betrayal too. If you see something that's a reminder, you could be watching a movie, you could be reading a book, you could be seeing a picture, you could, hear a song, you could get a receipt, you could see a text come in. I mean, anything. And it could be so innocent, but tell that to your mind because you feel like you're right back there. And it's extremely painful. Here are the most common physical symptoms. So again, you're keeping track. 71% have low energy. 68% have sleep issues. And if you've been through this, you know nighttime is the worst. Everything that you may have been able to sort of keep at bay during the day comes out in full force at night. And it gets really loud and it's hard to deal with these things at night. I work with our Transform members on all kinds of ways to not pay attention to that voice, to pay attention to something else, and so many different things you can do. But sleep is always an issue because that it's so typical that you were fighting it off during the day or busy or distracted with work, with kids, with life. And at night, it's just the veil is lifted, and everything is coming out in full force. Extreme fatigue. Well, think about it. Of course, if you don't sleep at night, you're going to be exhausted. And also your adrenals have tanked. So you're exhausted because your stress response has been ignited and it's as if you're running to safety. Like, think about it. If your stress response is ignited when you're under stress, like let's say there's a car coming at you. Well, that's a stressful event. So you have this brilliant response that sends the blood and oxygen to the heart, lungs, and limbs so that you could jump the curb to safety. With ongoing stress, it's like you're jumping the curb to safety 24/7. So it's exhausting. So again, you're keeping track. If you have that, weight changes. 63%, by the way, had extreme fatigue. 47% had weight changes. In the beginning, you may have remembered after your betrayal, you couldn't even hold down food. Nothing, right? And then later on, you started emotionally eating. You were using food for comfort. Very, very common. You're trying to numb, avoid, and distract yourself from these painful feelings. And food is one of the ways we do it. And it's really hard because you have to eat anyway. So we're wrestling with, well, I'm using this food, not out of hunger, for emotional comfort. And then what happens? Then you feel bad about what you did. You berate yourself. And then that's the perfect setup for another binge. And we do that over and over and over again. Very common. 45% have digestive issues. Remember, you're keeping track if you've had these symptoms. 45% have digestive issues. That could be Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea, bloating, you name it. Now, here's what happens. Let's say your betrayal happened a long time ago and you've had digestive issues and the betrayal really wasn't healed. Time has passed. You may even be in a new relationship or the same. Nothing really has changed. You're dealing with the digestive issues and you're like, I just need to find a solution. So what you're doing is going around to find a solution to deal with, let's say, the digestive issue. And you're taking these supplements and you're going to this digestive expert and you're trying all these different things. Well, think about it. If 45% of everyone who's been betrayed has a digestive issue, and we're doing all these things to medicate or suppress the symptom, we're really not getting to the root of it. And I'm not saying that some of those things may be very helpful, but if you want to heal it, you have to go for the roots. I remember it was Harvecker. He said, he had this analogy of, let's say, you want an apple tree. You have a lemon tree and you want an apple tree. And the tree grows every year and there are all these lemons, but you want an apple tree. So you pull off the lemons and you tape on apples and you're like, oh, I have an apple tree. And then, you're making it look like you have the apple tree. Well, then next season comes along and then there are lemons again. And you're like, why don't I have an apple tree? Well, at the root of it, right? It's a lemon tree. So if you want to change the fruit, you need to change the root. And that's where I remember that's where I got that from. Okay, the most common mental symptoms 78% are overwhelmed. So if you're overwhelmed, keep track of that. 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief. 68% are unable to focus. Now think about that, right? You can't focus. Let's say you're at your job and your job is demanding. You need to be at the top of your game. You can't help it. You're unable to focus because of the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. 64% are in shock. Are you keeping track of these numbers? 62% can't concentrate. Let's take that a step further. Imagine you can't concentrate. You have a gut issue. You're exhausted. Now you have to go to work. Now you have to raise your kids. Now you still have to go about everything you were doing before the experience. And think about now how you may be berating yourself and getting so aggravated with yourself. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I focus? Why can't I concentrate? And now you start doing all these things to improve your concentration and try to get yourself to focus better, where the shattering of the betrayal was at the root of it. The most common emotional symptoms, and keep track of these numbers, everybody. 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. And now you could bounce back and forth between those two numbers all day long. That's exhausting right there. 82% feel hurt. 80% have anxiety. 79% are stressed. Are you keeping track? How many numbers do you have so far? A few more. This is why I wrote the book Trust Again. 84% have an inability to trust. Think about how that's going to impact you. If you don't trust the person you trusted the most, then the next thought you go to is, where was I? How did I not see? How did I not know? What's wrong with me? And if I can't trust the person I trusted the most, and I can't trust myself, well, how in the world can I trust in anything or anyone? So now it's natural to go to work, let's say. And how do you trust that boss, that coworker, that collaborative partner? How do you trust that friend? How do you trust in your own discernment and your own decisions? Do you see? 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. Now, you may be in this category too, where you say, you know what? I will not take the chance. That was way too painful. I'm not taking the chance on sharing my heart again and being that vulnerable and opening myself up to the potential of that kind of pain again. I'm better off keeping everybody at bay and just keeping everybody at a distance. And you know what? Look at the power you are giving and continuing to give that person who hurt you. Not only have they betrayed you, but now you're keeping the love, the companionship, the intimacy, the connection from you because of someone else's actions. That's unhealed and that's not fair to you. Keep track if you have that number. 82% find it hard to move forward. And this is so common if you're stuck in stage 3. And 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how. So when you think of those numbers, if you've had more than 10, right? Think about how long you've been walking around with symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. Think about if you have more than 5, right? Think about if you've had 1 or more. These symptoms are the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. They're not the symptoms of getting older. They're not the symptoms of just regular daily stress. These are the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. So how do you heal from all of these symptoms? You move through the 5 proven predictable stages from betrayal to breakthrough. These are the symptoms that arise and start to show up when you're in stage 2, the shock, the trauma, D-Day, discovery day. And these are the symptoms that grow and continue when you're in stage 3. And think about what happens if you have these symptoms and then you start medicating and suppressing and you're not getting better, you're not feeling the relief. And why would you? Because at the root of them is the betrayal, right? Now you continue to spend your time, your effort, your energy on suppressing or medicating the symptoms. And all we're doing is going for symptom relief. Nothing is really being healed unless you're going about the healing. So nothing's really being healed. We're spending our time, our effort, our energy, our expense in money in finding the right doctor, coach, healer, therapist, pill, modality to get rid of these symptoms that all heal when you move through the stages. I remember in the study when I was discovering these symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome, going from one study participant to another. And I remember one of them, who I talk about her in Trust Again, and she was going to the hospital on a regular basis with like debilitating, I think it was diverticulitis, and bleeding, and it was so painful. And this was just a regular part of her life. When she healed from the betrayal, everything healed. She never went to the doctor again. She didn't have any digestive problem again. It all healed. I see this so often. Even what's so interesting too, accelerated aging. That's something so common. I think I did a video on it where I mentioned that, and people were commenting, "Oh my gosh, I look 10 years older." Now, here's what's interesting. When you heal, you look 10 years younger. So that accelerated aging, something you're seeing, that is very real. You're looking at yourself and you're like, "Who the heck is this? I don't even I don't look like myself." And then when you move through the stages and you do start healing, you get back that youthful glow. You start looking better. You start looking like that new improved version of you. It's real. And it's real because you stopped accelerating your aging. And this happens because we have these little things called telomeres. I think that's what they're called, telomeres. It's like the little cap on the end of your shoelace, right? And that's what keeps the shoelace from fraying. And what happens is those things get shorter. And as they do, that protective mechanism you have is sort of being undone. And someone who deeply studies this would explain it so much better, but you get the idea. And accelerated aging is the result of that. And that's just one of the things, a suppressed immune system. When your immune system is strong and healthy, well, it's protecting its borders. It's like an army protecting its borders. And when your immune system is suppressed, it's like the army's sleeping and invaders get through. So this is one of those things. As you heal from betrayal and the stress response is lessening a bit, well, that army wakes up and can start protecting you again. And so then with a stronger immune system, 80% of your immune system is in your gut. So that's also where melatonin is, which helps you sleep. And so you can see how one thing leads to the next and the next and the next. When you strengthen your immune system and you're strengthening your gut, and now the bad stuff stays out and the good stuff stays in, now, you can extract more nutrients from the food you're eating. Everything impacts everything else. But at the root of it is this betrayal. So when you're numbing and medicating and suppressing everything around it, like think about it. Let's say there's betrayal, and for those of you who are watching this on video, you're seeing me hold up my hand in a fist, and that's the root, that's the betrayal. But think about and I'm now pointing fingers at shooting things off of my wrist, and it could be weight changes. So what do? You start dieting. It could be sleep issues. So you take something to help you sleep. It could be hormonal issues. So you take something for to get your hormones regulated a bit. It could be hair loss. So you're using all these hair products to help your hair grow. It could be joint pain. So you're doing all of these things. It could be definitely your adrenals. So you start taking adrenal supplements. And what you're doing is you're medicating all of these things that are caused by the betrayal, which is at the center. So what would happen if you actually got to the root of it, which was the betrayal, and healed that? Well, of course, if you heal the betrayal, everything you were medicating and suppressing as a result of that would heal. And so that's what happens when you do just that. So take a look at the number of symptoms that you have, and no, it's not your fault. You're not crazy. And even if you've been spending decades medicating and suppressing these symptoms, you didn't know. And what was that Maya Angelou quote? If you knew better, you do better. Now you do. Now you know. So even if you say to yourself, it can't possibly be from that betrayal. It happened years ago. Oh, yes, it can. That's a stage 3 thing. Remember, we can stay in stage 3 for life because we just get used to it. We just start medicating and suppressing and we move along and we're fine. You're not meant to be fine. You're meant to be amazing. If you're fine, that's a stage 3 behavior. That's stage 3. That's why I wrote From Hardened to Healed. It's just for stage 3. You can heal from all of it. It's what we see every day within the PBT Institute. We see people moving into stage 4 and stage 5, realizing, oh my gosh, it wasn't about them. It was done to them, but it wasn't about them. Realizing that they're healing, they're becoming stronger, they're seeing things differently, they're opening up to new levels of clarity and identity and awareness and insight that they didn't have access to because all they were doing was suppressing and numbing and being fine. You don't have to be fine. You could be amazing. And that's what I'm here to help you do, become just that. Of course, if we can help you, that's what the PBT Institute is for. Whether you're the betrayed and you're struggling, you need to move through it, or you're the betrayer, we have a program for you too. There's so much waiting for you when you heal. The way you will show up personally in your relationships, in your daily interactions, the way you show up professionally, in how you deal with the people you deal with. We do corporate wellness programs as well. And there's so much absenteeism and turnover and low morale and low productivity. And of course there is. You've been blindsided. And then if you're medicating and suppressing, how could you be at the top of your game at work? You can't possibly. But when you heal from it and you have this new awareness, this new insight, this new healing, you have new fruits coming from the new roots. So I hope that helps. And take the Post Betrayal Syndrome quiz if you feel that would help you in either way. Either way, it all heals when you move through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. I hope this helps, and I'll see you next time. You need the right tools, support, and the right community to move through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. And we have all that within the PBT Institute. So join us at the PBT, as in Post Betrayal Transformation, thepbtinstitute.com. There's a version of you who's so confident, healthy, peaceful, and happy on the other end of your healing. And we can't wait to help you get there. We got you. Thanks for listening. And here's to your breakthrough.